Drum solo.
Wow.
No, I don't know. Yeah, that's fine. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, hello, and welcome to Atomic Mass Transmissions Live. As in, we're a live wire. You can't stop us. We're electrifying and gravity defying. Today we're painting up Hera from the upcoming, I can't remember the name of the squad pack. Which one? Stronger Than Fear. Stronger Than Fear song. We're going to make the strength of fear impossible.
I'll confirm it.
Confirm that one. Why don't ya? I don't think I'm going to do anything different. I think I'm going to stick to the look of Hera for this one. So if we want to kick that to the minicam, we can just start painting. We can just start doing stuff. Why not? We're here to paint. We're here to hang out. We're here to have fun. We're here to talk. We're here to chat. We're here to check stuff out. But we're not here to take requests.
Make the impossible possible.
Wild Star. Which paintbrush do I want? I also forgot my wet palette today. Gray Hera. Gray Hera needs chopper badly. We're going to start with, should this be a little more desaturated? Well, we'll just put a layer on and see what it looks like. Have you identified anything that needs tackled first? Typically on most miniatures, I usually paint from the inside out. So basically I start with the skin and then I work my way up the layers. For me personally, it's an easier way to repair any mistakes because things that lay lower are, if I make a mistake on something above it, which you're more likely to do, then I gotta paint that part anyways. So that's usually how I work. So I think I'm a little more punchy than the studio ones, which is fine. The Leiku markings are not sculpted, that is correct. We discuss things like that all the time when we're looking at the sculpt. We do a lot of testing and analysis. We go through some iterations. And what happens a lot of times is, it can look really weird, right? It can actually look more like, mechanical if you cut into there, or it can look like, she's missing parts. So it was better to not, because it just made the character look really odd. Sometimes you just got to get in there and you got to do a little painting yourself. Yeah, the markings look way better unsculpted. We like I said, we did a little. We do tests. We do iterations. We have discussions. We have a lot of people who's been doing this a long, long time. We take a look at different ways to do things, and we suss them out. It also allows for interpretation, like maybe. Tony Konchak, look at you champ. Is that my wet palette or yours?
Yours.
He brought me a wet palette. Hey, you got coffee in your pocket as well? No?
What?
Nothing.
The wet palette. She is the moment.
Look at that guy. Look at that fella. Yeah, it also allows us interpretation. But really what it does is like sometimes like on something like this Leiku, right? If you had the mark them cut in, right? then your profile, your silhouette would be kind of weird, right? She would have these like indentions or raised, and it just wouldn't look natural. It wouldn't look like Hera. So sometimes it's just better to leave that stuff off, right? Boo-doo-doo, boo-doo-doo, boo-doo-doo. The only information about stuff is the information we shared. I don't think anything else has gone out about how, when, where, why. Did Hera have any other poses considered? All a Spectre Squad got like 8 different poses drawn. So short answer, yes. Considered is not the word I would use. You know, you sometimes you have like an idea. I remember, or I know Schick was talking yesterday about Mando and Grogu, and there was really only one answer, right? Hera was more like we had concepts, right, of poses, and you get like a whole sheet from the artist usually of just a bunch of different poses ranging in from, you know, stoic to like over the top, right? And then you kind of go through and you pick, well, I like this, but I like this. Like, can we combine those, or I like this, but maybe it needs to be turned a little, right? Or something. So you always have to suss those poses out. And sometimes you have like little, discussions beforehand, like what should this character be doing? Like what would the intent of this character be? And it's like, well, with Hera, right, should look like in charge, right, in control. Doesn't necessarily be doing like full action, like over the top, like Sabine, right? Sabine's such a great example of like, what should Sabine be doing? Kicking ass is the answer, right? I'm not saying Hera doesn't, but it's more you want to capture that leader presence sometimes. Knuckle V, that's a great question. We're all familiar with the shows, and you always go back to your reference. As an artist, you're always going back to your reference. So, we might watch, I know there was a project where we went back and we watched the scenes like multiple times, trying to get a vibe for the action, but that doesn't necessarily mean you go, okay, we're gonna do this pose straight here, timestamp 472, right? But sometimes you do that, right? Schick was talking about it yesterday, right? That poster moment from Mandalorian and Grogu was really like, it just really captured what we wanted the miniature to convey and communicate. So there's no right answer here, right? You kind of creatively go through several ideas, iterations, thoughts, and you come up with what feels best for miniature. Miniature posing is also different than like even statue posing or two-dimensional posing. Like two-dimensional posing, you can do a lot of weird stuff in 2D posing. you know, you can break body parts and it doesn't necessarily read as broken, or you can have a really cool pose that looks really cool in 2D, and then when you put it in 3D, you realize like the leg literally can't be there. So it's super interesting. So there's a lot of thought going into poses and coming up with what works best for the miniatures, what works best for this crew, what works best for like what's releasing around it. And so yeah, you go back, sometimes you watch the scene a million times and you do your own version of what you see in the scene, or sometimes you're just like just that, right? That's the moment. You know, look at the Luke Skywalker, the Jedi Knight Luke Skywalker and Vader from the which one is that? Which Vader is that? Fear and I can't remember. I never remember squad pack names. The Vader and the Stormtroopers pack. Like that Luke is literally a, you know, it's effectively a, you know, scene from Return of the Jedi where Fear, and then the Vader is more of an homage to like concept art Vader. But they were designed together to work where the poses match up. Like that was very intentional. Like that was very much thought out. But it's actually from two very different places that those ideas for those poses came from. What's the process like converting anime characters to semi-realistic miniature? Oh. It's an interesting process, right? Because miniature itself is exaggerated, right? When you do a miniature, even when you're trying to do realistic miniatures, you're exaggerating stuff. Miniatures are a very exaggerated art form. You know, when you're sculpting, the hands and feet tend to look, or actually be bigger than they should be on, you know, when you're doing the 3D render. It's like, well, it has to be bigger because when you scale it, when it goes down, the feet, it's weird. Just building miniatures is a very weird thing. And there's a lot of rules that, you know, you might not be aware of. A lot of philosophies that you might not be aware of when making miniatures. Hands and feet need to be bigger. Heads tend to be a little bit bigger. And then whenever they go into miniature, they look correct. Stylizing stuff works better in miniature, right? When you go down to miniature scale, you don't need a million wrinkles like my shirt might have. You only need a few wrinkles to communicate the idea. And it still looks very real and natural. So, yeah, hands and feet, if you scale them correctly, quote correctly, they look really tiny when you get them in miniature. They're like little bitty wee little tiny little feet and hands. So you got to bump them up a little bit. Poses, you got to think a lot about poses, right? Three-dimensionality, looking at things from multiple directions. It's all a little dance we play. Just a little dance we play. Yeah. 2D art gets away with a lot of stuff that can't be gotten away with in 3D art. They just break. They just don't always work. I'm not saying they don't ever work, but they don't always work. So we're always taking that into consideration and looking at it. I think there's a hair stuck in my primer, and that's really sad. Ugh. So I added a little ochre and a little like magenta wine, like a sanguine to my green. I'm just gonna create like a little more naturalistic tone over top of this, a little more poppy green to kind of bring it together. Yeah, had an unfortunate meeting versus Shatterpoint Jedi Knight Luke on the battlefield recently. He's awesome. Sounds like he's rad. That's what you mean.
I had one of those meetings too. It was a challenge. It was really cool to see.
It's supposed to be a challenge.
Yeah.
Games are supposed to be a
These
challenge.
are not complaints. It was, as Dad said, it's pretty exciting to see all of it come together.
When you're doing the 3D sculpt versus 2D card art, how close do those arts work together? I know you say some 2D poses don't work well in 3D and vice versa. Do those arts kind of work independently from each other? Actually, many of our poses are done by our crack team of art directors. Most of our poses come from a combination of, well, I mean, they can come from anywhere, but most of them are drawn from like either Josh, Preston, Tony, or I. And then I always sort of help guide and be like, okay, well, that's a little 2D. We need to think about this in 3D. Like, show me what this would look like from the back. You know, if you really love that pose. And then sometimes they get complex, and I drag in the actual engineers and sculptors, and I'm like, hey, can you look at this, right? Can you look at this? Tell me what you think about this. Does this work? What are your feels about the engineering of this? And they'll be like, bro, what are you doing? And then they give feedback. So it's a very collaborative effort, and it becomes like a puzzle for us to work out as the art team. You know, how do we make something in 3D? And the 2D artists are always learning and trying to develop and be better at understanding that. Like I said, Josh and Preston and Tony work very diligently to understand the process better. Which is fun. Super fun. Ooh. Is it easier to create from an animated character compared to live action? I don't know if one's easier than the other to do. The rules are always a little different. Yeah, making miniatures look good from the back and the front, right? The miniature wants to be moving across the battlefield. So poses where the miniature is looking back at you, the controller, is always a little weird, because it's like, yeah, but they need to go forward. Go onward to victory. Don't come back to me. So those poses always kind of throw me off. But yeah, you do want the miniature to kind of look good from all angles. And there's always going to be one or two angles that aren't the most flattering. And that's okay, you know. You can have Olympic, you know, the most awesome physical specimens of humanity, like in the Olympics, and you take pictures from certain angles of them doing what they're really, really good at, and they look weird, right? It's just the nature of the silly human body. But it is something to be mindful about. It's like, what's this going to look like from this angle? What's this going to look like from this angle? What story are we telling here? It's always important. It's always a discussion. And you want to have those discussions. They're super important. Just letting the brush dance across here. We ain't in no hurry. Gabriel, I don't do favorites. Can't do favorites. I don't like favorites. When I pick whatever just kind of excites me as a character that day, right? I might play Shatterpoint one day and be like, I'm taking General Grievous because it's General Grievous. And then the next day I'll be like, I'm taking Padme because it's Padme, right? I'm having fun with the character and telling the story of my opponent. And then from a painting perspective, I love all the little puzzles and challenges miniatures get to present to me. So I get excited about, and I love painting everybody. I'm like, oh, Hera presents a different challenge than Chopper. Chopper presents a different challenge than, Luke. So I like those. Some feedback from a game playing point of view. Whilst many poses are awesome, they sometimes cause issues when placed on the battlefield, i.e. cannot fit somewhere. Question, is this ever a sculpting consideration? Daz, can you clarify what you mean by can't fit on the battlefield? I would like that. I would like to know what you mean by can't fit on the battlefield before I answer that question. I'll happily answer a question, but I think we need to have a shared consensus of what doesn't fit on the battlefield actually constitutes. I will patiently await your answer as I paint the miniature in a slow and methodical manner. Notice I paint the little ear guards. I like how yellow her pants are. She is wearing like kicking yellow pants. Wild Stars are attempting to answer questions. Usually if a main doesn't fit somewhere, we make room for it. Probably means some lightsaber poses can bump other mains and try and run that too, don't worry. Well, I mean, yeah, I don't worry about ultra precision, and also, like, are we just talking about like a unit placement at that point? Like, that's just unit placement, right? And also there's no facing in the games. Turn it around, swing it around, right?
That's also some of the fun of, trying to manage placement around objectives in Shatterpoint. Is like, how can you make it harder for them to fit, right?
Yeah, it's pretty difficult to body block in Shatterpoint, but it is possible. So the maze cape obviously surrounding it. It's. I think that's an interesting question, and the physical part of to me, part of the game is you can't always do what you want to do. You can't always do what you want to do. I'm a firm believer that you can't always do what you want to do. If you got to do what you wanted to do, there would just be a flow chart, and you just look at the flow chart and you'd be like, activate A, activate B. That's like why, the dev team has rules. Sometimes you're like, well, I'm not going to use it in every game. Well, of course you're not. Of course you're not. Because you just want a flow chart. You can't have a flow chart. So but the design thought, we're not trying to break, the frame of the base. We're not trying to have a lot of overhang, but it is sometimes sort of inevitable, right? It's just sometimes inevitable, right? We can make everybody fit in a tiny cylinder, but the poses are going to be way lessened. And you can just spin it around. It's not going to hurt anything. Yeah, yeah. Like I said, I'm also, sometimes you can't go where you want to go person. Go somewhere else. The game should cause problems for you. You wish they had scatter terrain like most of the how many good guy? First off, good guy, bad guy? What is that? How many good guy boxes actually have scatter terrain? Obi-Wan. What else?
We Are Brave has some B1s, destroyed B1s on, I think, Sabe's base.
Yeah, Sabe has like the little busted B1s to represent, she's like, I killed that. I did that. You don't want to mess with me. I'm a trained assassin.
Yeah, there's some crates in the pirate, in the Hondo Amaka squad. There's terrain bits in the Bad Batch.
Yeah, but those are all part of they're part of
like
them.
What they're doing.
Yeah, I think he means scatter terrain, like
slicing.
Unconnected bits.
Yeah, fair.
Oh, that's a great question, Johnny. I have nerve damage in both hands and can only hold a brush for about 30 minutes before I stop. I'm sorry to hear that, Johnny. If you could only do 30 minutes of painting and 1 hour rest, how would you max your sessions? Great question. I think I would focus on batch painting. And try to paint like the same color across. Crossfire has a little wall. Yeah, but that's part of the pose. I don't consider that scatter terrain. That's part of the pose. I think I would do batch painting. So I would choose a few miniatures that have similar colors and do that color across everybody. And then I would try to end each session with a wash. Right? Of course, that's not always going. But if you know you're going to do a wash, don't start with a wash. Try to get everything to a point and then finish with a wash, because then your hour rest is also an hour dry time. Are you able to build in that hour of rest time, because that would also be a good time to, like, you paint for 30 minutes, you build for an hour. You paint for 30 minutes, you do research for a paint job for an hour. That way you're still participating in the hobby, you're still getting progress done, right? Maybe you paint for 30 minutes and then you, cut a little foam for a terrain project, or you just build that next miniature. So I think that's how I would try to maximize. I would go back and forth and have a few projects in different stages, right? Of different stages, and just try to work around where I can. I hope that's an answer. Like I can never say I can relate, but I'm trying. So in my mind, that's kind of where I would come to. She's got these like light gray sleeves. I need a color for that. And then we need to start highlighting her face. Yeah, I usually don't have a few projects, so I'm really trying to put myself in that, like, what would I do? So thank you for making me think outside the box in my normal, what I would normally, think about stuff, right? Thank you for that. It's always a good exercise to be able to, get outside of where you are comfortable and put yourself in somebody else's shoes and try to figure out how that would affect them, so we can work together and come up with an idea to help. But yeah, lots of little projects are always fun. I tend to paint one thing to completion, but I have several things started because I'll start something, but then I get, I wouldn't say distracted, I'll get pulled away for other reasons to do something else. We've definitely had projects where it's like, oh, we're going to do this on stream, and then we don't do that on stream. So I have it like, built, so then it's setting there, which is, that's just the way it works. So I have a few projects that are like, hey, are you going to finish me? I'm like, yeah, I'm totally going to finish you. Don't tell them I'm not going to finish them. But I totally want to finish them. For her green skin, what influences the color you use to shade her face? I looked at the studio miniature, so I cheated. I made Brendan do all the work. Sucker. No, I say sucker, I mean Brendan. He's a sucker. I looked at the studio miniature. If I was doing this from the outside, I would definitely go to the show and look at what they did. But general rule of thumb is I like to throw warm colors into skin tones, even when they're alien green skin tones, right? Warmth shows life, it shows energy, it shows that the thing is living. So even a green skin tone, I like to throw a little warmth in there. So I went with a little wine color, a sanguine. What's it called? It's actually just called Dark Flesh, but it's very sanguine-y. It's a nice, beautiful, warm color. So I just threw a little bit of that in there. Green and red make brown. Brown's a good shade for skin tones. All skin tones, right? There's all these traits that all skin tones share, right? So lean into that, right? Find the beauty in the colors. So I'm basically doing what I would do for any human skin tone, except for I'm using some greens. Because I want to show life, I want to show energy. Brendan did such a good job on this.
It is interesting to come off of talking about the specific green of Grogu yesterday, right? And talking about, the specific green for Hera, and how you get there is, they're both green, but they've got some other sort of undertones to them going on that really separate them into two different categories.
Yeah, there's a lot of it's good because like that's the more realism of art coming into stuff, and there's that undertone thing, right? Like Grogu has this pink, and when I say pink, it's literally like if you look at his ears, it's almost like there's like this undertone of Caucasian-y flesh color. Oh, I got the hiccups. I'm sorry, but he also has like this like super rich pinkness in places. But it's also got this minty blueness in places.
Yeah, he's got such like a sea foam,
tone. And then there's gray. There's like real heavy grays actually in a lot of places. Hera is more of that olive tone, but you want that warmth, so you bring in that little bit of red, and it creates that undertone. But she doesn't have that pink. She doesn't have that Caucasianness. But there's still these tones there to create that life and energy, right? Brendan did such a good job, like, a little warmth, a little peach in the pink in the lips, a little peach around the eyes, like will bring that. Also think about where things bend. Where things bend tend to get a little warmer. That's where the vascular system is closer to the surface of the skin. So like your elbows tend to be a little warmer looking, right? They're red. They're red. Ears, right? Because the vascular system is very close. Eyes, around the eyes, like very red. And lips, like lips. I mean, obviously you can go find like examples of things with like very, very dark lips or purple lips, right? But for hair, we're going to use a little bit of this pink. We're going to put green into it because it can't just go straight into with, what is this called? Pink. This is called pink. Yeah, we got Rebels and Ahsoka Hera now for references, which is great. See, even that was too much. Too much. Went too far. So many amazing looking Shatterpoint miniatures. You have to get things approved from Lucasfilms. Have scaled down to Legion. Would like to see some older miniatures hitting Legion. Wait. I don't think I understand. Dallas, can I ask you a question? There are so many amazing looking Shatterpoint miniatures. Do you have to get things approved again from Lucasfilms? Well, we don't use the same miniatures between Legion and Shatterpoint. We don't swap between the two. They're two totally different sculpts.
And everything is its own process.
And everything is its own process for sure.
Its own set of approvals.
And everybody knows, or hopefully everybody knows. If you don't know, I'm sorry you don't know. We are in the process of getting a bunch of some of the older miniatures in hard or soft plastic into hard plastic. That's part of our long-term goal of Legion. And we've started that process, and wait till you see the results. It's going to be very exciting. I'm super excited. I've totally convinced myself I want to start an Empire army now. But it's a totally different process. Well, mainly because they're two different art styles, Johnny. Like, it's just two different art styles. And, you know, they each have their own plan. They each have their own needs, right? So there's a lot to that question. It's not as easy as just do it twice. And scaling stuff down is actually work, right? You just don't hit shrink. There's things that have to be done. But, you know, there's a Shatterpoint plan and there's a Legion plan. It's two totally different plans. And if there's reasons for that.
But there are a lot of exciting things to tune into Mini-Strav for when it comes to both games. So then you'll be able to see sort of what the plans are in both directions.
Mark your calendar, kids. Mark your calendar. Yeah, heads are different, hands are different, a lot of different things. True metallic metal question, Songer73, I totally was sad I missed that. I love true metallic metal. For some reason, my miniatures end up having a lot of texture. I do get that's the nature of pigment, but is there a way to minimize the texture look and... Whoa. Why is this a true metallic metal question? You're having a lot of texture. What are you priming with? Well, that's my first question. What are you priming with? And are you sure it's not your primer? Primer will add texture to miniature if it's too humid out. If you're using spray primer. I gave up on spray primer years ago. I can't do it. I can't bring myself to do it. It's too much for my poor heart to take. I switched totally to airbrush primer. Dracula's Mojo Dojo Casa House. It's if I would double check that if you're getting fuzzies, and I would check that it's not your primer. You need to shake the hell out of your primer. You need to make sure it's warm. And then you make sure it's not humid, because your primer is your likely candidate. If there is texture on your miniature, it's likely the primer. Rarely is it paint. Rarely is it paint. Especially if you're using miniature paint. Like, miniature paint is, well, formulated for miniatures, and the pigment should be, if you're using good miniature paint, very, very small particles. You know, we're using Monument. It's nice and smooth. It does not leave any sort of texturing. Yeah, I gave up. Being from the South, being from a place where you could only prime like 2 months out of the year, I gave up. I had to just buy an airbrush, and I'm not much of an airbrusher, but let me tell you, I don't prime without my airbrush. I will occasionally prime terrain without the airbrush with a rattle can, but even that makes me pretty nervous. I don't like it, but sometimes you just got to because there's just so much to prime. But yeah, if you're getting texture on the miniature, it's likely your primer. It'd have to be pretty wild hobby paint to be dropping texture. Warm bath for a primer? Yeah, if you put the primer can in a warm bath, it warms up the can. It makes the prime smoother. It's a good trick. And also, like I said, you just gotta shake the heck out of it. You can't just sugar go, right? It's if you read the back of a primer can, it says shake for 5 minutes, and I guarantee ain't none of you shaking a can for 5 minutes. You think you shook a can for 5, but that's like saying you withstand like sharp piercing pain. Like I did it for 5 minutes. No, you didn't. That was 30 seconds, and it sucked. Like shake a can for 5 minutes. It's for real, right? If for real 5 minutes, your arm's gonna die. But it's the only way to be sure. Yeah, I mean, if you want to run the risk, that's a you call. When I was switching over to wanting to become a full-time professional miniature painter as a freelancer, I definitely did not have that luxury, right? It was like, I can't miss a day, right, of priming, right? That missing a day of priming for a professional, somebody making a living, like that's missing a day of work. This is like missing a day of work. So I switched to airbrush priming, and I've never looked back because I can prime anytime, anywhere, any day. I can do my project that I want to do when I want to do it. Mother Nature can't hold me back. I'm a loose cannon.
Which is not to say that, like, if you're new to an airbrush, it's like an easy switch. Like, there's like anything.
No, it's not.
It just takes some practice, but it's pretty awesome to not have to worry about something you can't control, like weather.
Why do you want things to be easy? First off, gross.
Well, it's not
gross.
Necessarily want them to be easy, but sometimes people are intimidated, right? And if you can reframe it in your mind as like another opportunity to learn a new thing.
You get to learn new stuff. You get to fail. And failing is the best part. I'm going to fail so hard I'm going to get good at it. That's how hard I want to fail. Get in there and learn something new. It can be intimidating, but that means it's worth it. Boo to easy. I say boo. I challenge everything. I'm fueled by spite. I want to do things because you think I can't. Your kids would take the route camp? My kid would not do that. There's no way. My kid would look at me like I was a fool. I'd be like, hey, you want to shake this can for me? He would have been like, bro, I didn't choose this hobby. You did this. You suffer, fool. And I've been like, that's fair. Yeah, you're right, I did that. Excuse me, sir. Excuse me. What color do I want for them shading on the pants? He's got this nice warm color, and I don't know what that is. That's very frustrating. I don't know what color that is. Brendan! Somebody bring me my Brendan. Skee-boop. Boop-boop-boop. I'm not super familiar with those paints. Sorry, I have not used them. Here in the studio, we use Pro Acryl, made by the fine folks at Monument Paints. Have you seen their new commercial with the seal of approval? It's funny.
I enjoyed I don't remember how recently it came out, but the one where they're testing the paints and they splatter the guy and he's like, it's green.
It's green.
That one made me giggle.
Ooh, is that too light? Did I go too far? Man, I really don't know what he used for that beautiful, beautiful sleeve color, but it is nice. I need Brendan's recipe. Looks like a gray brown mixed with a light color. Is there a gray brown? There's got to be a gray brown. Not bronze, not mahogany. Pretty sure there's a gray brown. Brown gray. I did it. I did it. I did it. Oh, I wish y'all could hear the neighbors. I That guy's laugh was something else.
It does always kind of feel like womp, 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 like through the wall.
Yeah, it does.
And I'm not sure that they can hear it on stream, but guys, we can hear it.
Quite boldly. Oh, my kid painted miniatures with me. He's just not going to do my work for me. Like that's what I'm saying. He'd be like, I don't need to prime anything. Why are you asking me to shake the primer? Fool. That's the fun thing about miniatures, though. It's like something that everybody in the family can do and you can share with one another. And it's so nice to just sit down, paint together. Just a little hobby time with one another. It's a good way to build communities also around games. Do a little hobby time. Get your Shatterpoint paint night going on at your local game store, right? And just be like, hey, every this night, I'm going to be painting my Shatterpoint miniatures. You should join in. It's a great way to build community. You don't have to just play games. Sit down and paint with people. Be a positive motivation in the painting. Helping those people who might be intimidated to try painting, just be like, look, you don't have to be perfect. Let's make a mess. Don't overdo it, though, with like over complex or, let them make a mess. Sometime, I gotta do a miniature sometime where it says base coats and dark lines. Because you want to talk about being able to get an army on the table quick and look really good. Base coats and dark lines. Done. Yeah, and where's my Tom Holland?
I'll get right on that, bud.
Tom Holland wants to paint a Spider-Man. Hayden Christensen wants to paint an Anakin. Ba-doo boo, ba-doo doo doo, ba-doo doo, ba-doo doo doo. Ba-doo doo, ba-doo doo doo, ba-doo doo, ba-doo doo doo.
Mr. Dallas, it is that time.
I know. I felt it. I knew you were going to say it. All right. But I'm having fun painting Hera. I got pretty far. I took a lot of care with this one. I wasn't trying to rush. Whew. Are we ready? Let me know.
Ready.
Thanks. Oh, I couldn't do it serious. Oh, that was so funny. Thanks for joining us. Remember, every Tuesday and Wednesday at 1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, you can join us for the nonsense. of Atomic Mass Transmissions Live. And then for all latest news, information, and announcements coming from Atomic Mass Games, you should check us out on Twitter and our Instagram. That's where we post the information. That's where we post the news. So go check those out. So until next week. Oh, next week. There's only one stream next week. Should we tell them that?
There is only one stream next week.
There's only one stream next week. It's Tuesday.
Yep.
Live with Will Schick.
Yeah.
There's not a Wednesday stream. Sorry, kids. So until next week with Schick, and then 2 weeks from now with both of us, we'll see you then.
Yeah.
Go see you later. Yeah. You want to do that one more time?
No, God, I just forgot that I was the one who had to end the stream. 'Cause I was
Just end it.
All right.
We're ending
everybody.
it. Bye.